for Monday, December 6, 2021. Welcome and roll call.
Weigel.
Here.
Doppler. Here. Weber. Mock.
Here.
Kwame.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Veen. Mayor Buczynski.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 2, JDA action items. 2.1, quality of life flex pace request, Northern Air.
I'd like to turn that over to Brandon to describe, but I did want to point out that in your packets, there's some really cool photos or renderings of how the go-kart track would look, kind of a 3D version, so I just want to make sure everybody had a chance to look at that before anything goes on. So with that, here's Brandon.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, members of the JDA. I'm really excited to present this opportunity. This marks the first within the new program requirements as they've been broadened to include quality of life within that FlexPace program. And it's an exciting one. Northern Air's Family Fun Center is expanding their offerings with a multi-level, I'm looking for my words here, multi-level indoor go-kart track and outside mini golf course. It's an extremely exciting project, and no one better to talk about that than the owner of the project himself. Brian Lee is here with us tonight, and once he's done, I'll come back up and just run through the request itself. Brian?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, guys. This is an extremely exciting project. This is going to fill that 20,000 square feet then that was in the south part of our building that the inflatables used to be in. Along with the outdoor mini golf course that's going to go across the front of our building and then along the side. We're also going to be putting in a full restaurant area, getting into a lot more of the arcade games, things like that down there. So free to answer any questions for you guys if you want.
Any questions for Mr. Lee? Mr. Weigel?
I don't have any questions. I just think it's a good project. I think it adds a lot to the community, and glad to see you're willing to make that investment in Grand Forks.
And you said it was indoor, outdoor, so does it loop outdoor or is it all enclosed?
So the go-karts are actually going to be indoor.
Okay.
They're going to be electric, fully controllable, so that I can have a group of 7-year-olds go and I can hit a button and they'll be 10 miles an hour, all the way up to adults and helmets and racing, that whole deal. The mini golf course actually is going to be outside though. Yep. I wish we had room inside for that, but unfortunately we don't.
Really excited for this. Move approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second. Yeah, did you
Okay. No, we do need to open a public hearing. And were there further details that we wanted to share, maybe before the public
Yeah, I'd be
hearing?
happy just to quickly highlight the request itself. No, that happens more than you realize, doesn't it?
Kyle thinks it can get built quicker if he moves the approval faster.
Just highest level here, the total project is $2.725 million. That would then be a request for the FlexPace to buy down the interest rate from 4.25% to 1% on a $2.18 million loan. That maxes out the FlexPace program. That's $200,000 from the Bank of North Dakota, and then the loan request amount from you is $107,000. The loan to value is 96.88, and it's guaranteed by all people involved, both the corporate entities and all the personals involved with the project, and also a UCC filing is secured by. Those are the details I wanted to run through.
Thank you. That will clearly influence the decision. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 2.2, startup loan request, Coles Detailing.
Members of the JDA, this is another startup Grand Forks loan. Anthony Cole has been working for much of the year detailing autos, marines, and RVs. He's gotten both into the individual detailing market and also holding some corporate contracts. Beyond that, he's also gotten into paint protection, film, ceramic coating, and vehicle wrapping. And so this has been a very successful year for him, but as noted by the weather today, it got cold. And so the application is to help him get into a commercial space to continue through the winter and beyond. He's identified a space within the industrial park, has that lease ready to go, and there'd be some additional equipment and supplies, operational expenses included there too. The loan request is in total of $30,000. That is the maximum of that program, and he himself would be contributing another $10,000 to be compliant with that loan. 5% terms for 60 months with both the first principal and interest deferred for the first year. Lastly, this did go through the loan committee process and in front of the growth fund committee, has those approvals as they're in front of you tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I think Anthony is right here behind me if you have any questions for him as well.
Thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing first this time. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 2.3, startup loan restructuring request for Snack Shack.
Good evening, Chairwoman Mock, members of the authority. You may recall back in February of 2020, Snack Shack received a just shy of $18,000 startup loan from the JDA. After receiving that standard one-year deferral, which is standard for the program, one payment was made before a 3-month COVID deferral was requested. That was granted and moved his next due payment to August. At that point, no payments had been received for August, September, and October. Towards the end of October, Mr. Holt met with staff and then explained that his trailer had been damaged and has been rendered unusable, which has effectively eliminated his revenue stream for at least the immediately foreseeable future. He's currently at the point where he's going back and forth, I believe, with his insurance company, trying to negotiate if there's any reimbursement that's going to be available. In hopes to have an update on that soon. In any event, though, he does intend to be operational again this year, and had requested a interim or temporary deferral through June 2022. The Growth Fund Committee recommended that maybe a more regular check-in would be warranted in this situation, so they requested that, or recommended rather, that a temporary deferral be granted until January of this coming year, where we'll check in and sort of weigh the options and see where we're at with the process. So with that, also I know there is, on a separate note, there's been some issues with the trailer itself being rendered unusable. It was sitting on the street for quite some time. That has since been moved, so that has been resolved. So just again, as a point of, I guess, information for this. So happy to stand for any questions. I know Mr. Holt is here in the audience as well if you have questions for him.
Thank you. Can I open the public hearing first? Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Seeing no one, close the public hearing. Mr. Sandy, did you have something?
I have a question. When the Shake Shack is fixed, where is it going to go? Is it going to get parked right back on the street? Or is there a better, more permanent place that is a reasonable place to park it?
I would have to defer that question to Mr. Holt.
To answer your question, Mr. Sandy, there is a storage unit that the trailer is in now. In the future, we had bookings for this trailer. So, yes, it's going to sit in front of my house. We do a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night downtown, providing that we're not booked out, and then Saturday day, we'd probably be back at the farmers market and then private entities. So it'll be hit and miss, but if it's going to be sitting for any period of time, it'll be back in its storage. So Saturday night, Sunday, usually
I think if
it's
you're going to
clean.
have it on your premises or by your home, it would be great if you could have it on your property.
I understand that, sir, but I have a half a lot.
I understand that you've had a garbage dumpster parked in between your two homes for seemingly months.
Yes,
Where
sir.
that trailer would fit very nicely in that spot.
Yes, sir, I understand.
Okay, it would be great if you could get the dumpster moved and you could keep the trailer off the street so I don't get 20 phone calls a week. It would be really nice.
I understand, sir, and I do apologize.
No problem.
But,
I just,
you know,
I think it would be good for you and for your neighbors if you didn't have it parked on the street.
Yeah, I understand that, sir. But just the same, during the process of us picking up this trailer, shutting down the street for 2.5 hours to move it, you know, we still got complaints. So, you know, it's one of those things, you know, we can't win for losing. You know, I don't tell my neighbors what they do for a living and how they bring their income in. I just wish they would extend the same courtesy to me and, you know, the other neighbors that they complain about. It's frustrating. We don't make it a habit. This is an unforeseen thing. I don't know how many times I can apologize, but it's gone. We'll work to rectify the issue. And as far as the dumpster is concerned, you know, we're in the process of, you know, cleaning out that green building and getting it, just getting it ready to, you know, move forward. We're trying to get a sale there on that green building. So,
Thank you, Mr. Holt. I'll move approval.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Weigel? Are there further comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
thank you very much.
Item 2.4, Tech Accelerator update and authorization to bid.
All righty. Bear with me here while I get this up and running. So we've been, there we go. Can't multitask. So we've been working on the Tech Accelerator project for the past several months at a point where I think it's appropriate for a check-in with this body and at a point where we're ready to bid the project moving forward. So I'll just dive right in here with a little bit of background. You may recall the EDA Build to Scale grant, which was a UND Center for Innovation and EDC-led application for a downtown tech hub. While that project was ultimately not funded by the EDA, it really highlighted the potential for a project like this in Grand Forks, evidenced really by the local commitment of nearly $600,000 that's remained since. Running in parallel to that, the Accelerator to Industry project, which has been led by Haley Rosassen with the City of Grand Forks HR department, as well as Chris Nelson with UND Grad Studies. And some industry partners. They've been working on and have developed a curriculum for upskilling and regional workforce development, that sort of thing. So there's some overlap there with the Accelerator component or what we hope to do there. Leading up to in April of 2021, where we received the Eda Fit Up Grant, which is what we're here to talk about tonight, supporting the fit up sort of the building, which was a 50-50 match with the EDA and JDA funds. JLG over the past several months and over a year actually has worked continuously to continue some design work on this process, which has led us on this sort of timeline here to about the midway point here, where we've moved through the design process to a point where we're ready to open bids, or rather to put the project out for bid, with the hope that then in February we'd be back at this body for awarding that contract, with construction then to take us through fall 22, where we'd have a completed project. Difficult to see here floor plans where you know, we really do envision kind of in this area a lot of that startup sort of activity occurring, but we want it to flow throughout the whole building. So you'll see back some huddle rooms, conference space here, what is now the community room, and the kitchen area, sort of to really promote that everyday use, as well as some classroom space to facilitate some of that workforce development and that sort of thing. These are far more boring to look at than the renderings we have. This would be the view from the front of the building looking back towards the community room back here. See some of those huddle rooms off to the right, as well as conference room and sort of booths and stuff off to the left. Here you'll see sort of at the end of that hallway in the community room, again, trying to make that a space that's usable for daily use and for collaboration, that sort of thing. And then we'll just move upstairs here to the executive boardroom. This will serve a lot of purposes, I think. The city of Grand Forks will obviously have access to this, as will many of the tenants in that building. So we're wanting to make sure that this is really a supportive kind of value add space for the whole project. Budget-wise, you'll see that construction budget that comprises the $2.16 million, which is the half and half EDA, JDA matches. Some of those other budget considerations for fees, tech fit up, furnishings, that sort of thing is all, still under review, and we're working on opportunities with sponsorships, partnerships, rents, that sort of thing to really supplement that budget as we move forward on that front. In terms of programming, these are, I think I said last time, these are kind of two sides of the same coin. The Tech Accelerator component, we're working with the folks at the Center for Innovation on sort of 3 models to really support kind of all parts of the spectrum of startups, from ideation, which is really supporting our local pipeline, building our local pipeline, to, as the name implies, current tenant incubator, the autonomies of the world, to try and tailor support to them as best we can. And then the corporate partnership model, which, in broad strokes is a large corporation that we'd be bringing into the space that could really serve as a mentor to some of the smaller startups in the space to accelerate them on their growth path. Like I said, the other side of that coin, the Accelerate to Industry piece, that's the city and UND's workforce development component. We're hopeful that there's some overlap there in terms of maybe some of the curriculum that's offered, where we can maybe get some efficiencies there. But again, that's, in any event, operations that can coordinate with the Accelerator piece as we move forward on that. So in terms of next steps, EDA is reviewing our final design and bidding documents. What we're here to ask you tonight is to authorize us to move forward with that bid once that review is complete. And then, as I mentioned, in February, we'll be back once those bids come in for an award of the contract with operations and Accelerator programming to continue in the interim. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
Mark, one quick question.
Yes, Mr. Bean.
I appreciate it. It looks like you have a security door, so you did some of the things for building security. So I'm assuming that was taken into account during the design of the facility?
Correct. Yep. We actually very recently followed up with Adam Jonason, our IT director here with the city, as well as Sean, the project architect, asking questions about that, door locks, security camera coverage, all that stuff, and they are very much on top of that. So, yeah, I guess in short, they have definitely considered that component.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Do we need a public hearing for this? Okay, let's open the public hearing. Seeing no one, let's close the public hearing. Any further comments or motions? Anyone? Move approval by Mr. Weigel. There a second? Mr. Sandy? Any further comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Any motions to adjourn? We have a motion and a second by the mayor? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Welcome, everybody. We'll call to order the Grand Forks City Council meeting Monday, December 6, 2021. Roll call, please, Maureen.
Weigel.
Here.
Doppler. Here. Weber.
Here.
Mock. Here. Kavami.
Here.
Sandy. And Veen.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance. All right, 1.3, Mayor's announcements. With having that fifth Monday, we got a little extra time off, which was nice. Hopefully everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. You'll have a good Christmas too, right around the corner. With this recent weather, I think there's going to be no doubt we'll have a white Christmas, that's for sure. I want to give a quick thank you and a shout out to Public Works. I think they did a great job getting out there and getting the snow cleared. There'll always be the inevitable struggle of snow blowing your driveway immediately before the plows come by and plug you back in, but we continue to work and get out there as quickly as we can. Keep in mind at these really cold temperatures, the sand and the salt doesn't really activate, so the roads are going to be very slick, so take a little extra time to get to where you're going. A couple weeks ago, we had a big contingent from the Fufang Group Limited in town. Just going to do some highlights of what we took that group along. One of my highlights early on was seeing the chairman that got out and had looked at the land for the first time and had brought tears to his eyes. It was a dream of himself as a child to be able to bring a factory to the United States and to be able to finally do that on the 40, in and about the 40th degree latitude, which he called the Corn Belt. It's his dream to set up here. So that was just great to see the raw emotion there. We started at the Alara Center. They did a community tour, looked at some housing options. We had a dinner with Governor Burgum and the chairman over at Harry's Steakhouse, a full day over at AE2S, working on infrastructure. We had a good natural gas meeting. They had lunch with the landowners. Another meeting over at the Alara Center. They met on workforce. Another highlight was John Onken had him over at his impact center there, and the chairman got to drive one of those giant tractors. I think he was kind of swerving and trying to hit people a little bit, but so it was the first time he'd been in a tractor in 30 years, and he grew up as a farmer, so that was another highlight of the trip. And then actually we had, last night we had dinner at Ellie's Ivy, and they threw together a North Chinese diet, and apparently it was pretty on. The chairman and his wife, that was the first time I really saw them eat the entire time they were here, and they licked their plates clean, so they did a great job over there putting that on. So very exciting, a lot of work to do, but that level of engagement just shows the progress that's happening. We had a group from Thales come out, pretty exciting. They had received a big award and is setting up, and they're going to be part of our UAS sector, and we brought them through the Tech Accelerator. They're very interested in being kind of a mentor tenant there. They do a similar thing in Europe and Canada, so pretty exciting there to start seeing that sort of the industrial partners, these national, multinational companies that are interested in not only being a part of that, but looking at talent and how they can benefit from that, and also lending their expertise. So pretty exciting. I was over at the airport, GFK Airport, with Ryan Riesinger and the governor, former governor, now the senator, John Hoeven was there. A lot of big upgrades going on there with the west-east runway extension, getting ready for that. So pretty exciting. And then over to UND with Rias and their autonomous Humvee they got there. So an exciting day. Then we had, of course, unfortunately, we're over at the funeral for General Palmer. He's a guy that in the short time I got to know him over 2 years, he really made me want to be a better person. And that's not a lot of people are able to do that to people they meet just in a number of years. So keep his family in your thoughts and prayers. He was just quite the man. He would, getting that Veterans Memorial done and then going right into helping to fund that CT center. The guy worked until the day he ended up in the hospital. So like I said, keep him in your thoughts and prayers. The Career Impact Academy is moving forward. I think the last count now we're up to just shy of 10.5 million, which is great. While we were in DC, we talked to some of their Fargo contingent that was there representing kind of their brick and base retention, some chamber members. And one highlight when they talked about the CT Center was the fact that a lot of the businesses that donated to the capital project chipped in some yearly much smaller amount to keep it going and keep it funded. which definitely helped out with operations, and they were more than willing to, because with their investment, they wanted to see the CT Center successful. So that was exciting to hear. We were out in DC, the National Guard reception for the 188th ADA, the Air Defense Artillery in DC. This is a North Dakota branch that's since 9/11, in those 20 years, they've been there for 10 of those years, so they keep getting called back to duty there, which is pretty exciting. Good to see General Dorman and National Guard members. I don't know across the whole city, but just the police department alone, we've got 8 members that are in the Guard. 4 of them are deployed right now, with 3 of them there in that group in DC and 1 at the southern border. So to see those men and women being not only willing to serve Grand Forks, but to serve the state and the nation is pretty exciting. And then we had supper with the a couple congressional delegation members, but we got meetings with all 3, with Representative Kramer, former Representative Kramer, Senator Kramer, Senator Hoeven, and Representative Armstrong, talking about all this infrastructure that's going on, some of our priorities with the infrastructure bill, recent federal infrastructure bill. All in all, definitely a good trip, and Grand Forks was represented well and thought of definitely highly by the congressional delegation and the National Guard, so that was great to see. We got a retirement. I know Todd got to work with him a lot more than I did, but also Brett and Ken did. But Blake Crosby, the executive director at the League of Cities, has retired, and they've got a new director hired now, Matthew Gardner, so formerly of the North Dakota Chamber of Commerce. So get to know him well. And lastly, we got one of our very own, Teresa Knox. She's the Nursing and Nutrition Manager for Grand Forks Public Health. She received the North Dakota Center for Nursing's Legendary Award in the category of leadership. So I'm just going to share, if it's okay, Ms. Swanson, some of your comments. So this comes from the Grand Forks Public Health Director, Debbie Swanson, said the following: Teresa has distinguished herself in the community and the state by developing solid relationships, which is the foundation to collaboration in public health. She is a member of the North Dakota Center for Nursing, Tobacco Free North Dakota Public Health Association, and currently leads the North Dakota Directors of Public Health Nursing. From school boards to park district commissions, city councils, and state legislative committees, Teresa is comfortable interacting with policymakers, community leaders, and the media. She is influential in articulating a public health position through solid research, demonstrating the necessary moral courage to address challenging and controversial issues such as tobacco prevention laws and prevention of disease during a pandemic is a definite strength for her. So if we could give Teresa Knox a round of applause, really appreciate it. And we can move on. I think that's my longest announcement, so I'll spare anybody else any further comments, and we will move on to 2 awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations.
2.1, COVID update.
Mr. Dulitz, please.
Mayor Bochenski and members of the council, I'm Michael Dulitz with Grand Forks Public Health. I'm going to do a health officer's dashboard update, and then Debbie will be available to give a brief update on the Omicron variant. Looking at our week in review, overall we've seen an increase in the number of cases in Grand Forks County. In addition to that, a rise in tests, unfortunately also a rise in percent positivity. But on the positive side, we've seen an increase in vaccinations. Those vaccinations are primarily due to the approval of boosters for anybody over the age of 18. And a large number of those vaccines were administered at our Grand Forks Public Health vaccine site at the Grand Cities Mall, where we had over 1,100 vaccines given last week in 6 days. Looking at our, taking a look at the age groups where we're seeing a lot of the cases, we're still seeing most of our cases in that 30 to 70 age group, so the working age individuals. The 20 to 29 age group overall has been very quiet this year, which has been, a stark contrast from what we saw last year. And then the school age groups have been a little bit more variable, and they've been on the way back down with their case rate. Comparing this year to last year, basically right now we're at the highest case rate that we've been at since about December 8th of 2020. So we're kind of intercepting with the downswing of the large outbreak last year. Overall, we keep seeing the case rate staying right, between about 40 and 60 right now. Tomorrow, the case rate will decrease because we didn't have testing at UND, and Monday is normally a large testing day. But I don't know what we're going to see the rest of the week. This was a bit of a surprise to see the increase in cases again. With that increase in cases, we've also seen an increase in hospitalizations. Again, Grand Forks County has had a relatively lower burden overall when we look at hospitalizations compared to our peer counties, but it still makes an impact on the healthcare system to be able to staff units and things like that if they are persistently having to move staff back and forth from the COVID unit to other units within the hospital. This weekend, they did peak at about 27 people in the hospital, according to all true data, and they were down to 23 as of this morning, COVID positive inpatients. We're still seeing a similar trend, unfortunately, with an increase in cases, followed by shortly thereafter with an increase in deaths. We're up to 98 deaths reported out. We'll be adding 2 more tomorrow, unfortunately, so we will be at 100 deaths since the pandemic started. Putting this into perspective, though, a little bit, Grand Forks' overall case fatality rate, so the number of deaths divided by the number of COVID cases, is still very low compared to your peer county of Ward County. It's over half of what Ward County has, and significantly less, about 0.3% less than Burleigh County, right along the lines of where we're at. We're about equivalent to Cass County. But this trend does seem to be sticking. Moving into a little bit more positive side, looking at our vaccination rate, the FDA did approve the vaccinations for the 5 to 11 age group, and it's been around long enough that we've had a good first round, and now we're seeing people become fully vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine. So Grand Forks is up to 20%, or 1/5 of that 5 to 11 population who has received at least 1 dose. We're second only to Cass. We've been fighting Cass back and forth to see who can get the most people in that age group. Ward County has still been low, as they have been in other groups. And we're also making a lot of progress towards reaching that 60% goal that we had originally set back back last winter. So we're within 1,500 of getting out of that red group, getting people to that 60% threshold with at least 1 dose. We're seeing a widening of that that group that has 1 dose, so the group in yellow on there. So we are making some progress towards getting there. The end of the year might be a little bit too far, but we are still making progress, fortunately. And then looking at what age groups we still need to make some progress in. The 5 to 11 age group, we're up to over 500 people fully vaccinated in that age group. The 12 to 18 age group has done a pretty good job at getting vaccinated. The 19 to 29 age group, one thing that we've been working on, our data team, me and my data analyst Drew, as well as our communication team, have engaged with the UND communication team, and we're looking at getting set up with a research project there to do some focus groups, as well as engage, as well as some surveys to try and figure out what we can do in that 19 to 29 age group to better reach them. And then we have still been making a lot of progress, fortunately, in the 30 to 60 age group. So we're above 70 fully vaccinated, 70% fully vaccinated in all of those groups, which is definitely a positive sign. So our bottom line, testing volume's high, but our percent positivity is increasing. Our overall case fatality rate is still pretty low, even though deaths are still happening. And we are still avoiding these kind of rapid peaks that are going to put more stress on the healthcare system than this persistent stress that they're having right now. Our case rate is still trending high with the highest case rate since December 8th of 2020. We're still seeing those deaths reporting out. Unfortunately, we hit that 100 death mark as of, well, I guess, tomorrow. And then our opportunities, will be staying at the Grand Cities site doing vaccinations at Grand Forks Public Health personnel through at least March. And boosters are now available. I'd encourage you if you're eligible. So if you've had been vaccinated before June, now's the time to go get boosted. And hopefully we can get our hospitalization rates down and reduce deaths in our community. With that, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Dulitz. Any questions from Mr. Dulitz? Or Ms. Swanson, I guess for that matter, she's also. Did you have something else to mention, Ms. Swanson? Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Dulitz.
Mayor Botensky and members of the City Council, I just wanted to add a few comments about the Omicron variant that you've been reading about in the news and let you know what we know about it as of today. But of course, as you know, the science is always changing here. But it's now been identified in several states in the U.S., but as of this morning, there have been no cases in North Dakota. North Dakota continues to do that surveillance testing with the whole genome sequencing to find out if it is available or if it is appearing here in our state. And so they'll continue to do that. They do target certain cases, and travel is one of the situations where if someone tests positive and they've traveled, then they'll do the sequencing on that sample. So you may see more instances of that among vaccinated people. We know that with all variants, people who have been vaccinated can get mild forms of the disease, but they are certainly less likely to be hospitalized or experience severe disease, and that's always our goal with immunizations. So we just want to make sure that people are fully aware of the fact that this is a new variant. It's still being studied by the CDC and others. We don't know the full impact of the variant yet, but I'm sure that we'll be getting more information on a pretty regular basis. As Michael mentioned, vaccines are still our most effective strategy, and we want to encourage everyone to be vaccinated, especially as we approach the holiday season and people are gathering and traveling more. As Michael mentioned, also boosters are now available for anyone over 18 who's had that primary series or a single dose of Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So we're highly encouraging that for our community right now. And both of us can answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Ms. Swanson at this time?
Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to public hearings and second reading of ordinances.
3.1, public hearing and approval of Lions Development Agreement. Several attachments, as is listed on your agenda, are attached.
Thank you. We got Mr. Gostad. We're going to turn it over to you. I think there was just a couple slight adjustments from the last time we saw it, and I know Mr. Carlson's in the crowd tonight. So if you want to start, Mr. Gostad, please.
Sure. What you're actually doing tonight is you'll be approving the resolution, which in effect approves the development agreement and the exchange agreement that is attached. We just want to go through just a couple of things with respect to the resolution so you know what's in there. Sections 1.1 and 1.2 just describe the property and the project that will be done. Section 1.3 describes the exchange agreement that will be entered into between the JDA and Northridge Assets LLC. Sections 1.4 through 1.9, these are factual findings and information that were contained in prior staff reports leading up to today's date, and I think I've cited to most of where that can be found. Sections 1.1 through 1.14 are procedural matters that we have to go through in order to adopt the pilot. And then the last sections 1.15 and 1.16, the City Council needs to make findings that entering into the development agreement and the pilot itself is in the best interest of the city, and it will not result in any unfair competition, which is found in sections 1.15 and 1.16. Section 2 is just to approve the development agreement and then to approve the pilot. I'll go through just briefly some of the terms of the development agreement. One thing, right now the developer is Northridge Accommodations LLC. based upon discussions we've had with them, we expect that that's going to change. They're going to have somebody else own the property, develop it, but right now, Northridge Accommodations LLC owns the property and they were the applicants, so that's the way it's set up. In that regard, I would expect then an amendment to come forward when that happens, when the change, or in anticipation of a change of ownership. So you should expect to see that sometime in the future. That won't affect your approval here tonight, but just I wanted to alert you that that's a possibility. The development is expected to start in May of 2022 and end in January of 2025. Before construction can start, however, there are things that need to be accomplished in advance, and that's also specified in the development agreement. It's actually a 2.1.6, that there has to be a plat of this, a replat of the property, and then there have to be the plans for the project itself. For the Lions property project has to be approved by the city. There is work to be done, both infrastructure work within the alley, abutting alleyway, and utility work that needs to be done. Plans for both of those also have to be approved by the city before construction can start. With respect to the Lions Alley project, like I said, there's infrastructure work that needs to be done. There's pavement and stormwater is what that infrastructure will be. It's anticipated that it'll be an 80-20 split, with 20% then specially assessed to the properties that are benefited by it. There's also utilities. Primarily what we've been focusing on is Excel and burying their lines that are in the alleyway right now, but there are other utilities that will need some work as well. Again, plans for this work need to be developed and need to be agreed upon before work can be done. And you'll notice that there is highlighting yellow the cost allocation. That hasn't been determined yet, and that's another aspect of the agreement that will come forward as an amendment once that's flushed out with Excel and the other utility companies as to how that work will be paid for. One thing that is unique because of from other pilot agreements we've seen is that because we've got infrastructure work, utility work, and the project itself, there's a provision about coordination of work. And what that says is, though, the provision talks about all portions of the work will be done in coordinated fashion, but to the extent there might be some interference or some problems that the Lions project, that development might interfere with the infrastructure work, the infrastructure work will take priority in that regard. The same with the utility work. A unique provision of this agreement that you haven't seen in others is that the developer has agreed to demolish the property that the city is on the verge of acquiring from Mr. Schott and the Schneiders. They'll do that demolition work at the developer's own expense. We'll provide notice as to when they'll do it. One thing is we won't provide notice until June 2nd, 2022, or when the building off the Schneider property would be removed. The reason that's in there is that's a term that's unique in the Schneider agreement. They wanted an opportunity to take the building if they wanted, and they have until June 1 to do that. So that's why that term is in there. Section 3 gives the pilot example, and I think I've gone through this before. In sum, the incremental value of the building effectively won't be subject to taxation, but the original value of the building plus the land value as it currently exists, the land value as it currently exists, plus any incremental increase in value for the land will continue to be subject to property taxation. And what we'll do is the city assessor will then report that as the true and full value for the entire property, calculate what the tax would be based upon the applicable mill rate against that, using that true and full value, the original building value and the land value, to come up with what the payment of little taxes would be, and he'll report that to the county auditor on an annual basis. The spreadsheet that was attached kind of illustrates the tax. There are some taxes that will be generated annually. One unique thing is that this, because of the timing of when this will be completed, the property will still be subject to property taxation in the construction years. So they might have some larger property tax in, for example, 2023 and 2024. I've only used the values, their assessed values, as an example just to highlight that there will be some property taxation that'll still be due in those years. And then 2025, when the expected completion date, that's when the pilot will really kick in. It shows, that spreadsheet shows what the taxes will be generated on an annual basis and how that gets spread to the various taxing entities. And then it also shows what the pilot property tax savings would be, which is effectively what the property taxes would be had there not been a pilot in place. I use a 1.51% effective tax rate going forward. That may change a little bit, but it gives you an example of what this pilot means and how it gets applied. There is early termination for the pilot, some of which are statutory. The one that I want to highlight is if there's a change of ownership, that can lead to a termination of the pilot. That's why I wanted to give you an advance, alert you to that fact, and that there'll be an amendment coming forward once the developer determines the entity that'll own it. And as I understand it, it's going to be the same ownership interest, just a different entity. As far as the conditions before the pilot becomes effective, again, the first is that all those plans for the Lions project itself and for all the alley work that needs to be done have to be approved. Also, the property has to be completed before this pilot becomes effective. There are default provisions and remedy provisions. Those are similar to what we've seen before in other pilot agreements that have come forward in the last several months. And like the other, there is no, this property can't be subject to any other tax incentives going forward. One thing I wanted to point out, I talked a little bit about this exchange agreement. This is between the JDA and Northridge Assets LLC. It's really a like-kind exchange property. We'll be exchanging, the JDA will be exchanging the Herald parking lot for the lot over by the courthouse is a like-kind exchange. A couple of it's a standard purchase agreement. Normally you see cash, but this is an exchange of property. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. There are a couple of special provisions I wanted to point out. One is it's going to close the end of January of 2022. The developer wanted to have that date for the closing. They wanted to get title of the property because they wanted to start the replatting and also start some development work, and they thought they needed title to the property at that point. Because of that, there is a provision in section 4.3 of the exchange agreement that calls for a reconveyance of the property. Effectively, both parties will be placed back in the same position they are in today if those plans are approved. And we selected a June 30th, 2023 date to give enough time to try to develop the plans and get an agreement. If they don't, we don't come to an agreement on all those plans by that date, then we reconvey the property we get from the courthouse back to Northridge, and they convey the parking lot back to us. Keep in mind, no construction can occur because the plans haven't been agreed upon either. In order to note that interest, that reconveyance obligation, we will be recording a notice in both records for both properties to put people on notice of this obligation. Also, because Northridge will have ownership of that parking lot, even though there's no construction, we put in a provision in section 5.5 of the exchange agreement that allows the city, the JDA, their tenants, guests, anybody like that, to continue to use that parking lot in unlimited use. And that would continue until construction is actually started. So, and again, construction can't start until the plans are approved. So that is, in a nutshell, the agreement, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Gosted. Appreciate it. I'm going to open the public hearing now. If anyone was here to speak on item 3.1. All All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing period. Got a motion to approve from President Sandy, second from Mr. Weigel. Any further comment? Seeing, no, Mr. Weber, you have a comment, please.
If I may. Mr. Phelan, have we ever given a 20-year depreciation for this sort of development previously?
Mayor Bochansky and Councilmember Weber, do you mean a 20-year tax exemption?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, thanks.
I think this probably is the max. It's the max we can give statutorily for a payment in lieu of taxes. This one is unique in the fact that it is 20 years, it is 100%. It's unique in it is the max, and it's rare that this city council has approved the max. It's the first time in my career.
Yeah.
But I think to keep in mind, we did do a third-party analysis with our consultant, Baker Tilly, and the 20-year tax exemption was needed in order to, at 100%, was in order to move this project forward. I think it further, the tax exemption also provided that they're going to maximize the value of their investment on that block. So, right now it's 27 million we're going to think is the taxable value. My guess is they're going to invest well beyond what that taxable value means. And so we really were trying not only to get the project to move forward, but also to maximize the investment, because once you make the investment for the next 50 plus years, we're not going to come back to do that. So I think in the best interest of the community, it moved the project forward. It's going to add a huge amenity in our downtown, and it's going to add a maximum value in the investment itself.
Very good, thanks. And I'd agree with everything you said there. This is kind of a silly example, but the courthouse at 102 North 4th Street, built, 115 years ago, still in fantastic shape. With depreciation laws the way they're set up these days, I'm guessing this building would be depreciated in 27 years, maybe you'll go the full 40. So when you say that we'll have this value for 50 years, we're not really building buildings to last 50 years anymore. So 30, 40 years, we should have this building there. And we're giving the tax break for the first 20 years of that 27 or 40 years. Very good. I'm ready to vote.
All right, any further comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Moving on to action items. We'd pull 4.6, 4.7, and 4.8. Any others that council would want pulled tonight? All right, seeing none, I will look for a motion then to approve 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, and 4.5. Got a motion from President Sandy, second from Councilmember Dockler. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Those motions carry unanimously.
4.6, award bid number 2021-34 payloader.
Yep, I just wanted to pull this one. This one didn't go to the committee of the whole, just on the timing wise. Just a couple things to note. First of all, it says streets on this is a sanitation front end loader. Second, if you look at the bids, it did say that it had to be secured by December 1st, but they're going to give that lower price even though we're a little bit later. Ms. Lipsch was able to work out some deal to make sure that was set. So everything is good on that front, and it looks to be a pretty good deal looking at where prices are going. So unless anybody has any further questions, if they're ready to move approval. Motion from Vice President Mock. We have a second. Second from Mr. Kavami. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 4.6 carries unanimously.
4.7, 2021 employee holiday hours.
Thank you. This is a traditional one that we normally do. Usually, Councilmember Weigel is nice enough to add to this, and on December 24th, add 4 hours. He doesn't have to do that this year because the 24th is a full day off, so it kind of worked out well. So if we get a motion to approve, I'm assuming everyone's willing to give an extra 4 hours for the great work staff's done this year. So,
Move approval.
got a motion from Mr. Weigel. Got a second? Who wants the second on this one? Second from Kavami. He's hot on the seconds right now. Further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries unanimously.
4.8, discussion of cancellation of the December 27th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Thank you. Do we need discussion? Anyone want to be here 2 days after Christmas, or push that to the January 3rd meeting?
Move approval.
All right, we got 6 motions to approval. Let's go, we'll take President Sandy's motion, and we'll take Vice President Mock's second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 4.8, that motion carries unanimously. Now, moving on to 5 information items.
5.1, statement of changes in cash balance as of October 31st.
Thank you. And 6, citizen comments. Any citizens here wishing to speak? Mr. Mackey, Lieutenant Mackey, Deputy Chief Mackey, anything tonight as a citizen? Nope. All right, we'll close the citizen comment period. Moving on to 7, approval of minutes and bills.
7.1 is the vendor list and engineer's estimate as presented.
Got motion approved from President Sandy, second from Councilmember Dockler. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The vendor list and engineer's estimate is approved. Moving on, 8, citizen and city administrator comments. Mr. Phelan.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to forecast what's going to come to the next committee of the whole, we'll have one meeting, but it'll only an important one. So we'll have probably a number of budget amendments to close out the financial year. And I think the good news for the city of Grand Forks, it's been a good financial year for us on the revenue and expense side. So even though we're going to have some, budget amendments that may come through, if you look at our overall revenues, we've been quite blessed this year with exceeding our expectations over the year. So I just want to give you a highlight on that. We're also going to have the Fufang Group development agreement. And so we're working through the details. We have presented Fufang a draft agreement for their review, and we're going to have some meetings with their attorney here in the near future. But we're going to provide a framework of what is contained within the development agreement, just so you know that where we're going sooner rather than later. We don't anticipate having it for approval in December, but our next goal would be to get that moving forward in January. But to give you a framework of where we're at with the various different areas as part of that development agreement.
So that's information only next Monday?
That'll be information only.
Great.
So you'll kind of know where we're going. We'll get some early feedback at the same time where we have the Fufang Group attorney and group taking a look at it. The other thing we're going to do is, as you recall, every 6 months we've been bringing back the Northern Plains nitrogen. We have a letter of intent to serve them with water, wastewater, stormwater. You also recall we've been looking at the plume analysis with the various modifications that are happening at the airport. We don't have that final study completed. However, I'm going to reach out to NPN to see if they still intend to want to extend that for another 6 months. So that may be on, and I'll give you an update kind of where we're at with this, but we're not going to have a final analysis regarding that, but perhaps an update on where we're at with that. The other thing that we're working on and trying to finalize here at the next meeting is the one tax incentive we're still working on is the boutique hotel, the Olive Inn boutique hotel downtown. And so Baker Tilly is looking at that, and I'm going to try to get that to the next committee of the whole meeting so that you guys can start moving it forward. And as we say, it takes 60 days to get through all the local government entities, have the public hearing. So I'm going to try to get that moving forward to get with a recommendation for you guys to start moving forward the process to the other government entities. So my goal is to have that in front of you, that the developer, in this case Edgewood or Mr. Giese, wants to move forward with that project. So hopefully we'll have something in front of you on that particular project. The other thing I just want to point out, thanks to all the work of Dan Gosted, the guy is wonderful to work with and good at what he does too. So the last of the fourth development agreements is the Memorial Village. The higher ed did approve that, and so that's the next one Mr. Gosted is going to work on. So I would anticipate after the new year that will be in front of you, and hopefully that project starts here in the springtime too. But that's the fourth of one. You've gotten through 3, so thanks for all your approvals along the way, but we'll have that one to move forward with. And then the other thing that we're working with Mayor and the administration is several economic development opportunities. I want to give you a heads up. So Coast Materials, I think you've approved a plat of a kind of we'll call it an industrial park. What we're looking at with Mr. Gosted is, can we approve developments like that and just set aside kind of a quasi-renaissance zone so that it's set up as you have incentives as part of that, as opposed to approving one building at a time. And so we are looking at some concepts that would help us speed through some items, have private developers set up some, we'll call it logistics parks or mini manufacturing parks, and try to get it set up so that we don't have to approve it one at a time. And there's a lot of interest in our community with all the industrial projects really to move forward. So we're working on some opportunities like that to see if we can move forward. And I'd really like to move that forward here in the new year too. And then finally, we also need to bring back some of the developments. And obviously, the winter time is when we start building projects. We had the south end development on the with Prairie. We need to bring that back. We're doing some preliminary engineering work on that. But there's some other areas, both infill and greenfield in other parts of the city that I can see us moving forward. So I think overall, if the Fufang Group moves forward with the development agreement, we start construction, I think 2022 and beyond could be some really heavy construction years, not only for the city, but the private development. So even though we're not going to have a meeting, and I think we're really set up well for 22 and beyond. And we're trying to set up ways that you guys can approve some things in advance so everyone knows what the expectations are regarding infrastructure investment and also tax incentives as we can. So we don't have to say, well, we got to keep bringing them back one at a time to see how it works. So that's a lot of work to be done. And thanks for all your great attentiveness and all the things we've accomplished a lot this year. And I appreciate all that you do. And we'll have a relatively heavy committee of the whole meeting for the last one in December. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Field. I think we can all thank Mr. Gosted. I think he's actually selling a recording. He reads this agreement in its entirety. It's about 50 minutes long, so $5, anyone that's having trouble sleeping. It's great right at bedtime. So thank you, Mr. Gosted. We'll move on to mayor and council member comments, starting with Mr. Weigel.
Oh, thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Dockler? Mr. Weber?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Kwame?
No, thank you.
Mr. Veen?
Yeah, one quick question for Mr. Phelan. Where do you see the old water treatment plant? Is there a timeline you're thinking for that one?
Mayor Buczynski and council member Bean, that's a really good question. I think we were going to try to get through all of the current development agreements, and then we'll get the boutique hotel, and then I think in the new year, really to get back to the neighborhood and the community about what we want to look forward to. And we'd show you some concepts that was more, I'll call it more single family, and I think we want to take another look at that concept. But I think one of my concerns is we're going to overbuild the downtown, and we want to make sure we do the right kind of development. But I think with everything that's going so well, we really want to get an RFP out there, get private sector developers to engage. And if it's not the right development for us in 22, we don't have to accept the proposals. We can always defer it. So I think our goal should be to get some RFPs out in 2022 and see what the market will provide for. And we'll have to work on incentives and what we're going to do as part of that. But that should be a 22 goal sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Veen?
That's all.
All right, thank you. Vice President Mock?
No, thank you.
All right, President Sandy? All right, I already used my comment to thank Mr. Gosted, so that's all for tonight. If we get a motion to adjourn, got a motion from President Sandy, second from Mr. Weigel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We are adjourned.